Oh, there I go. I was muted. Oops. Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another Classic Comics live stream. Let's see. So, what are we going to talk about tonight? So, strikes. Hollywood's on strike, and the strikes are starting to have an impact. We've got projects getting delayed. We got movies being pushed back, streaming shows getting delayed. And then on top of that, Hollywood is investing heavily in AI, hiring for AI specialists. We'll talk a little about that. It kind of gives you a hint where Hollywood is heading. We'll talk about Secret Invasion. So, Secret Invasion came and went with a bit of a thud. No one really liked it. And the writer admitted pretty much that they just kind of made it up on the fly as they were going along. And oh, what else? So there's a new female version of Hush, the Batman villain who's going to be appearing in comics. Good God. And I don't know if it's exactly news, but comics is outselling manga. And there's an article that kind of looks at some of the numbers. If I have time, I'll go over that. And I don't know, if there's time, we might do a little super team family. Who knows? But first, let's go ahead and talk about Hollywood and the strikes, right? So I've got an article here. This is from the Hollywood Reporter. All right. And I hope, am I coming through okay? Let me make sure. Right. Yeah, okay, yeah. Sounds okay. All right. Is Barbenheimer a last hurrah? Studios, theaters brace for tentpole havoc if strikes linger into fall. Let's see here. Okay, so the extraordinary success of Barbie and Oppenheimer was a needed shot of adrenaline for Hollywood and theater owners as domestic box office revenue hit 311.1 million over the July 21st to 23rd frame, the fourth biggest weekend of all time. Wow. I mean, do they mean just for that weekend for like July through 23rd, or they mean really like for an ever? Never in history has one movie opened to 100 million or more and a second one to more than 50 million. Okay, so I guess this is a first. Wow. Greta Gerwig's Barbie strutted to a stupendous 162 million, while Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer earned an equally stunning 82.4 million, well ahead of all expectations for a 3-hour biographical drama. But will it be the last major cinematic event of 2023 if the actors and writers' strikes aren't resolved in the coming weeks and the big fall and winter tent poles consider relocating? The box office ecosystem is still incredibly fragile and has yet to return to pre COVID levels of health. The domestic summer box office before Barbenheimer was down 7% from the same quarter in 2022, a disturbing trend. Now, after the July 21st to 23rd weekend, it is up by a hair at least, or 1.1%, according to ComScore. Revenue year to date is running 16% ahead of 2022, but is still down nearly 19% from 2019. And summer 2023 is still down 14.4% from the same period in 2019. Multiple sources tell The Hollywood Reporter that theater owners are scrambling to figure out whether the major studios are going to rearrange their fall and winter tentpoles. Actors cannot promote any film that's from a member of the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, meaning any streamer, major legacy studio, or a specialty division such as Sony Pictures Classic, Searchlight, or Focus Features, which are owned by Sony, Disney, and Universal, respectively. This is a critical moment for cinemas. They cannot survive another version of the pandemic and the loss of big movies, says one studio source. Nor can Hollywood, for that matter. I don't know if people who are sitting at the negotiating table are taking this seriously enough or understanding it, adds another top studio source. Maybe the producers have different agendas. Maybe if you are Netflix, you aren't concerned about the box office. Yeah, probably not. Executives surveyed by THR don't believe there will be any immediate moves on the part of the major studios. One exception, MGM's Challengers, directed by Luca Guadagnino, I think that's right, and starring Zendaya, pulled out of the Venice Film Festival and delayed its release from September to 2024 because of the actors' strike, although that is arguably more of a specialty title. The big talent driven movies start in October and November. If one or two of them start moving, there will be trouble, says a distribution exec. Apple's high profile Martin Scorsese directed feature Killers of the Flower Moon, starring Leonardo DiCaprio, Lily Gladstone, and Robert De Niro, is set to open nationwide October 20th via Paramount after an initial limited release on October 6th. The film isn't likely to shift, according to sources. While DiCaprio and De Niro are marquee stars whose ongoing support could boost the pick, Killers of the Flower Moon generated plenty of press around its glitzy, high profile world premiere at May's Cannes Film Festival, and Scorsese, or where Scorsese and the cast walked the most famous red carpet. And weeks before, DiCaprio turned up at CinemaCon in Las Vegas to host a conversation with Scorsese before thousands of theater owners. Both Apple and Amazon, unlike Netflix, are experimenting with traditional theatrical releases. Apple also has Ridley Scott's epic Napoleon, starring Joaquin Phoenix, coming out via Sony on November 22nd. Movies opening in November and December face far more of a challenge. If the SAG-AFTRA strike continues, in particular, some movies might not be able to finish if there is last-minute voiceover work needed or minor reshoots. And then there is the challenge of stars not being able to do any promotion. Warner Brothers, home of Barbie, has a slew of big event picks waiting in the wings. Insiders say no decision has been made on the status of Legendary's early November tentpole Dune Part 2, whose star-packed cast includes Timothy Chalamet, Zendaya, and Austin Butler, and dispute a report saying Dune 2 and December's Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom and The Color Purple, oh, right, I forgot they're making a remake of The Color Purple, are on the bubble. Warner's also has Christmas pick Wonka, which likewise stars Chalamet. But if no resolution is in sight regarding the strikes, that could change. One source close to Dune 2 says there is keen interest in having its star studded cast do publicity. Actors Union SAG-AFTRA is giving waivers to certain independent movies being distributed by non-AMPTP members, though that doesn't help the likes of Sony Classics or Searchlight or Focus Features. Searchlight announced Tuesday it is relocating the limited release of upcoming Venice Film Festival entry Poor Things from September to December, while Focus is mulling pushing back Drive Away Dolls from director Ethan Cohen. There is so much emotion still out there. I don't think there is going to be an imminent solution to the strikes, says a third studio exec, adding that every single cinema owner is concerned. In my opinion, it will take actors who want awards. They could become more vocal about getting a deal done. Huh. That's interesting. I hadn't thought of that. Hey, Adega, how you doing, man? Thanks for stopping by. Good to see you. Where was I? Okay, so for exhibitors, the glory that is Barbenheimer could fade away if the big fall and winter tent poles that have the best chance of turning into four quadrant cinematic events are pushed. Adds ComScore's Paul Durgarbedian. Is that how you say that? Uh, Barbenheimer put a spotlight on the essential nature of the creatives both behind and in front of the camera to not only write the scripts and perform on screen, but also to actively promote their films. A marketing campaign starts in earnest 2 months before a film hits theaters. So, again, there is still time before the tentpole domino game begins all over again. I don't think there's any interest in moving these big movies. If you move them all to next year, they are going to cannibalize one another, says the third studio exec. There's another version, or this is another version of what happened to us during the pandemic. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is that you push them all back, then they get all jumbled together. Like, it was 2021, wasn't it, where we had just a lot of stuff all coming at once, and we had like three Marvel films in like 6 months or something like that. Um, but I don't know. Most of what you read, it really seems to think that this is not going to end soon, that the studios are, both sides really, are really dug in. And I don't know. So my guess is stuff is eventually going to start getting pushed back, but we'll see. All right. Let me move on to the next one here. Let me get rid of that. Okay. So while actual openings haven't been pushed back yet, there have been a number of tentative release dates that are getting pushed back. Again, this is from the Hollywood Reporter. So, Spider-Verse, Craven the Hunter delayed his first major theatrical dominoes fall amid strikes. The dominoes started falling Friday as Sony made a number of changes to its theatrical calendar amid the actors and writers' strikes, including Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse moving off its spring 2024 date. The studio also shifted its release plans for pick for the August racing pick Gran Turismo as it scrambles to figure out another way to market the movie without stars such as Orlando Bloom and Dave Harbour promoting it. I don't know. Is Harbour really that big a star? I don't know. I guess after Stranger Things he is. It will now open wide on August 25th with sneak previews on its original weekend date of August 11th, as well as on the weekend of August 18th. Further out, the studio relocated the Aaron Taylor Johnson Craven the Hunter from October. It also dated two big films for the first time. Bad Boys 4 is scheduled for June 14th, 2024, and Venom 3 for July 12th, 2024. Let's see. Okay, Sony is the first major studio to blink and make wholesale changes to its calendar since the SAG-AFTRA strike commenced July 14th. This doesn't include smaller specialty films that have moved as a result of the dual writers and actors strike. Sony's announcements confirm cinema owners' worst fears that the calendar for both this year and next will see major disruptions. Yeah, I figure that is probably going to happen. Other studios are still in a wait and see mode in terms of their big fall and winter tent poles, but there's no telling how quickly that could change now that Sony has rearranged its schedule. The move could be seen as a sign that the unrest gripping Hollywood is not expected to have a resolution soon. Spider Man Beyond the Spider Verse is the biggest strike casualty yet in terms of release dates, since it is part of a prized and successful franchise. Sony is taking the movie off its calendar for now since actors cannot do any voice work. It was set to open over the Easter holiday next year on March 29, 2024. This year's Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse earned a dazzling 677 million at the global box office. Even before the strike, the film was expected to be delayed, but the labor strife further complicates matters. The Spider-Verse features the Spider-Verse features are enormous undertakings, and the pressure is high to push the envelope after the original Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse won the best Oscar for animation and became a genre-breaking hit. This year's Across the Spider-Verse was delayed 8 months before finally opening June 2nd. For The Hollywood Reporter profile in May, writer-producers Phil Lord and Chris Miller said they were still in the process of figuring out Beyond the Spider-Verse, with Miller noting the beginning and end were pretty solidified and the middle was still a bit, quote, squishy, unquote. And star Haley Steinfeld told THR in a story published in early June that she had done no voice work for the sequel yet. Elsewhere in Sony's slate, Gran Turismo was supposed to go wide on August 11th. Sans not having the cast, Sony is instead going to do sneak previews for 2 weekends, August 11th through 13th and August 18th and 20th, and then open Gran Turismo nationwide on August 25th. It's an experiment to see if word of mouth can fuel awareness. The stars can't promote the film, but the audience can, says a Sony spokesman. And I'll just give it a good review, or they'll call you toxic or something. Craven the Hunter is moving from October 6th of this year to August 30th, 2024. Wow, so almost a year. They're pushing that back a year, what, 10 months? August, September. Yeah, so about 10 months. Or actually closer to 11, like 11 and a half. Sony does not want to release the R-rated action film without a full marketing and publicity push that revolves around Taylor Johnson, who plays the Spider-Man villain. Yeah, because no one knows who this character is aside from hardcore comic fans. The studio's Karate Kid had another Karate Kid. All right. Pardon me just a moment here. I need to cough. Okay. Okay. Adega says not going to cry over it. Never seen either of those movies. Which one you mean? Like the Karate Kid or in Craven or? But yeah, I'm not gonna really. It's funny, I don't know if you saw it, Adega, but Chuck Dixon, the comic book writer, he put this post on Twitter and had a slate of all the movies that are being delayed because of the pandemic, and it was like 30 movies or something, and out of that, there were like maybe two where I was like, oh, that's too bad. I wanted to see that. Most of it was just like, good riddance. You mean Into the Spider-Verse? I mean, it was good. I thought the first one was actually pretty solid, pretty good. A pretty good story. I thought it was one of those movies, it was obviously pushing, like representation and, the message and diversity and all that. But I thought it was a movie that actually did a pretty good job of that. I thought they worked it in a way that it worked okay, it worked fine. And I overall quite enjoyed the movie. Dune still looks like it will be on time. Yeah, I hope so. Um, I hope so. I quite enjoyed the first one. Of course, I'm a fan of the Lynch version, but I thought they overall did a pretty good job on the first one as well. That's another one where, again, I think they made some cast changes to sort of make it more diverse and all. But again, it I thought it was fine. Really, aside from who's it? Kynes, from the character of Kynes, who they recast as a black woman. Aside from that, I thought that there wasn't really any issue with the casting, and I thought, I mean, Kynes isn't a big part. It's a fairly small part, so I thought it was okay. All right, where was I? Okay, so yeah, Studios Karate Kid is also relocating because of the strike from June 7, 24 to December 13th, 2024. The studio never announced a filmmaker for the project, and with the strike, development has stalled. There were a number of changes not related to the strike as well. As many had previously speculated, the untitled Ghostbusters sequel is moving off its December 20th, 23 date. It will instead open on March 29th of 2024. The move isn't surprising after Sony didn't tout the movie's high-profile Christmas release at CinemaCon. Jason Reitman, who helmed the previous installment, returns to produce and write with his co-creator Gil Keenan directing. Yeah, I remember back early, like at the beginning of the year, seeing like kind of a list of all the tentpole movies and seeing, untitled Ghostbusters sequel for December, and I was like puzzled, like, is that even going to come out? Because I hadn't heard anything, like what is the story, who's going to be in it. And again, there's no title. And at this point in Midsummer, we still don't have that. So I don't think that was going to come out anyway. Let's see. So the studio also dated two tentpole movies for the first time. The studio's untitled Bad Boys sequel will hit theaters on June 14th, 2024. Timed to Father's Day weekend. The film stars Will Smith and Martin Lawrence, with Bad Boys for Life filmmakers Adil El Arbi and Bilal Fallah returning to direct. It recently completed filming. The third Venom movie will go out July 12th, 2024. Film stars Tom Hardy as the Marvel antihero, with his longtime writing partner Kelly Marcel stepping into the director's chair. It shut down production in Spain amid the director's strike earlier this month. In other moves, Madam Web is moving up 2 days to Valentine's Day from February 16th, 2024. The Spider-Man spinoff stars Dakota Johnson and Sydney Sweeney, and it hails from filmmaker S.J. Clarkson. Madam Web. Jeez. I mean, I'm sorry, but you're starting to scratch the bottom of the barrel when you're like, let's make a Madam Web movie. I know that Sony is restricted because they only have Spider-Man related characters to use, but I'm sorry, there are better options than Madam Web. You could use what is that group? The Slingers. There's a group of characters called the Slingers. Um, I mean, there are other options. Let's see. Um, I think that's pretty much everything. So they listened from, no, I read that already. The strike related shifts couldn't come at a more precarious time. The box office still hasn't returned to pre pandemic levels, but is enjoying a historic burst of growth thanks to Barbie and Oppenheimer, which have fueled the fifth biggest weekend of all time. Wow, it's hard to believe that's the case, but yeah, they keep saying it. But the heat of Barbenheimer is now at risk of giving way to a cold fall and winter. Alrighty. So let's talk about some of these projects that are getting delayed here. So again, this is Hollywood Reporter. Marvel delays Thunderbolts filming amid writer strike. The feature starring Sebastian Stan and Florence Pugh was aiming to shoot next month in Atlanta. The ongoing writer strike has caused Marvel Studios to delay production on a second feature. A few weeks after the studio decided to press pause on Blade, Marvel has opted to hold off on filming for Thunderbolts, the Hollywood Reporter has confirmed. The hope is to begin production after the strike, which also caused Marvel to stop filming on the TV series Wonder Man. Well, it's a streaming show, not TV show, right? I mean, I know it's kind of a blurry thing, but let's see. So, Beef creator Lee Sung Jin was the most recent writer on Thunderbolts, working on an earlier draft from Black Widow writer Eric Pearson. Jack Schreier is directing the project. Thunderbolt centers on a team of Marvel's shadier characters. Blah 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 blah. I think we pretty much know what it's about now. It's basically Marvel's Suicide Squad. So that's being delayed. And okay, I've got an article here on Blade being delayed, but since I already kind of covered that, we'll skip that. Let's see what else. Let me bring. Okay, this is from Axios. So what hit shows on delay as Hollywood strike continues. A dual Hollywood strike is threatening releases of big budget shows and movies. The latest, SAG-AFTRA, the union that represents Hollywood actors, went on strike earlier this month, joining the writers' union, who have been on strike since May. All scripted film and TV production has essentially stopped. Meanwhile, the Emmys are scheduled for September 18th, but actors can't campaign for Emmys at events under strike rules. meaning the event will likely be postponed. Here are some notable shows expected to be delayed. So, Euphoria on Max. Production on HBO's teen drama series was already expected to be paused due to creator Sam Levinson's work on The Idol. After the writer's strike began, HBO executive Francesca Orsi told Deadline that Euphoria would likely be delayed until 2025. White Lotus on Max. In the same article, Orsi also mentioned that writing for the next season of The White Lotus has stopped. However, she stated it's still too early to determine how the new season, which is scheduled for 2024, will be impacted by the work stoppage. The Last of Us on Max. Ditto for The Last of Us, which received 25 Emmy nominations following the first season. Really? What they're saying. The background here is that The Last of Us is not currently in production, and it really depends on how long the strike lasts, whether or not it will be affected, said Raina Falcon, Senior Vice President of Communications at HBO, on the status of Season 2. Abbott Elementary on Hulu. Working on Season 3 of the Emmy Award winning sitcom has been halted since the writer's strike, cast member Cheryl Lee Ralph told Today. Abbott creator Quinta Brunson also plays the lead role of Janine. And honestly, so far, aside from Last of Us, I've never heard of any. Well, I've heard of Euphoria, but I've never even heard of White Lotus or Abbott Elementary. Adega says, I'll catch the rest on replay. Okay, man. Thanks for stopping by anyway. Have a good night. So what do we have? So Stranger Things on Netflix. Creators Matt and Ross Duffer put out a joint statement following the writer's strike to announce production on the fifth and final season of Stranger Things. To announce that production on the fifth and final season of Stranger Things would be halted. Saturday Night Live on Peacock. NBC's iconic sketch comedy show went dark in the middle of its 48th season. Former cast member Pete Davidson was supposed to host the May 6th episode with musical guest Lil Uzi Vert. What? Whatever. But production stopped because of the strike. Handmaid's Tale on Hulu. That thing is still going. Executive producer and co-showrunner Yalin Chang told Reuters work on the sixth and final season of Hulu's popular dystopian drama has been paused. Daredevil Born Again on Disney Plus. Marvel fans will have to wait a little longer to see Daredevil's return to television. WGA East tweeted that filming of the series, which took place in New York, has completely shut down, and Deadline reported it was unclear when it would resume. I tell you, from what I'm hearing, they are absolutely gonna wreck this show. Apparently, they're gonna kill off Foggy. Their his partnership with Foggy is no longer uh, in effect. Karen's not going to be in it. Really, except for Daredevil himself, everybody has been recast, and it's going to be more Marvel silliness and more MCU. It's going to be awful. Andor on Disney Plus. After receiving criticism for continuing production after the writer's strike began, showrunner Tony Gilroy shut down all work on the Star Wars series, per The Hollywood Reporter. And Cobra Kai on Netflix. Series co-creator John Horwitz announced in May the Cobra Kai writers' room for season 6 was closed in support of these striking workers. That's the one that really I hate to see. And yeah, I mean, easily out of all this stuff they've named, that's easily probably the best show as far as I'm concerned, and really probably the only one that I was looking forward to. I hate to see it. It's going to be interesting when they resume season 6. Because at that point, how many years will have passed since season 5? Because it's been, I mean, since they filmed, and I mean talking about when it was aired, when it was released, but when they filmed season 5 was what, 2 years ago? Something like that. And so now you're probably looking at least a year-long delay before they film on the next one. And that's assuming that this resolves fairly quickly. You could be looking at like maybe a 3 or 4 year gap between the two seasons. So it's going to be interesting when they come back and all those high school kids are now like in their mid 20s. Okay, so what the strike means for streaming. The strike comes during a time when streaming isn't booming as much as expected, prompting investors to tighten purse strings. Separately, streaming services may rely more heavily on live television events like sports and reality television to keep viewers engaged. Yep, they probably will. Okay, we got next. Okay, so another quick article on delays. So this is from the LA Times. Stranger Things shoot delayed by strike. Stranger Things showrunners Matt and Ross Duffer announced Saturday that production on the fifth and final season of the Netflix series has been delayed by the ongoing strike. The Writers Guild is demanding better pay, residuals, blah, blah, blah. Writing does not stop when filming begins, the Duffers posted on the Stranger Things Writer Room Twitter account. While we're excited to start production with our amazing cast and crew, it is not possible during the strike. We hope a fair deal is reached soon so we can all get back to work. Stranger Things is among several small and big screen projects that have been affected by the strike. Marvel Studios' Blade and Apple TV's Loot, NBC's Saturday Night Live, CBS's The Talk, and various late night talk shows have been impacted, according to The Hollywood Reporter. Yeah, and nothing of value was lost. Other shows are working around the stoppage. Both Amazon's Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, uh, speaking of nothing of value being lost, and HBO's House of the Dragon have continued filming in the United Kingdom after stockpiling scripts ahead of the strike, according to Deadline. However, many have raised questions about how such productions will handle rewrites and other adjustments to the story without writers present on set. In February 2022, the Duffer Brothers confirmed that the upcoming fifth season of Stranger Things would be its last. The Emmy winning sci fi series stars Finn Wolfhard, Noah Schnapp, Caleb McLaughlin, Gatton Matarazzo, Sadie Sink and Millie Bobby Brown as a ragtag bunch of kids battling evil forces in their spooky small town in the 80s. All right, so yeah, so a lot of things getting delayed, a lot of things getting pushed back, but no, at least in the next few months, there have been no obvious changes again, except for what was that one I mentioned earlier? I already forgot the name of it, but there was one, Craven, that's been pushed back. That's been pushed back. All right. What have we got? Okay. So the next article here. Now, of course, one of the big disputes in this Hollywood strike is, of course, the issue of artificial intelligence. And I've done a number of videos about this on my channel, but the growing use of AI is quite clearly and understandably seen as a threat by writers and even by actors. And I think part of the reason they're striking is to try and limit what studios can do with this stuff. But of course, the studios have other ideas. And again, this is from the Hollywood Reporter. Studios quietly go on hiring spree for AI specialist jobs amid picket line anxiety. While the writer and actor strikes are driven by multiple concerns, including questions about compensation, there's no question that the role of artificial intelligence in entertainment has emerged as a hot button issue. In a fiery speech in Times Square on July 25th, actor Bryan Cranston epitomized the concerns of actors, telling the crowd of hundreds, "We've got a message for Mr. Iger. I know, sir, that you look at things through a different lens. We don't expect you to understand who we are, but we ask you to hear us and beyond that to listen to us when we tell you we will not be having our jobs taken away and given to robots." The actors fear that studios will take their likenesses or voices and reuse them over and over with little or no pay and with little in the way of notice. The writers fear that studios will use large language models, or LLMs, like ChatGPT to write or rewrite scripts, harming their livelihoods. The, The producers, aka the EMPTP, argue that AI should be, quote, use should be a balanced approach based on careful use, not prohibition. While the future of AI in Hollywood is unclear, there is no question that the major studios and streaming services are intrigued by the technology. Job listings at almost every major entertainment company show that there is a veritable AI hiring spree going on as companies seek to understand how the technology can change their businesses. And fittingly, given Cranston's speech, Disney seems particularly intrigued by the tech. Company has a number of open positions focused on AI and machine learning across the country, per a review of open positions by The Hollywood Reporter. Some are part of Disney's Imagineering team, the group responsible for turning Disneyland and Walt Disney World into world-renowned attractions. One job for an R&D Imagineer focused on generative AI and is looking for someone who has the quote ambition to push the limits of what AI tools can create and understand the difference between the voice of data and the voice of a designer, writer, or artist, unquote. The role will, quote, collaborate with third party studios, universities, organizations, and developers to evaluate, adopt, and integrate the latest generative AI, unquote. The job promises a base salary of up to 180,000 per year with the possibility of bonuses or other compensation as well. Another role for a machine learning engineer in the Disney Streaming Advanced Research Division, which is responsible for creating AI enabled solutions for Disney Plus, Star Plus, and ESPN Plus, per the listing, will use AI to, quote, work on advanced personalization efforts involving digital avatars, unquote. In total, THR spotted some half dozen AI focused jobs at Disney, but the company is far from alone in exploring the space. Netflix made some headlines after The Intercept noticed an AI product manager job that promises compensation of up to 900,000. Our business is driven by machine learning and artificial intelligence, which fuels innovation in creating content or content creation and acquisition, personalization, payment processing, and other revenue centric initiatives, the company writes in the listing. But Netflix has a number of job openings focused on AI and machine learning, dealing with video games, research, R&D, customer experiences, and other areas. In fact, nearly every studio owner seems to be thinking about AI, whether it's for content, customer service, data analysis, or other uses. Amazon and Apple, of course, have dozens and dozens of AI and ML jobs open, but some of those jobs appear specifically geared to their media businesses, like an Amazon job for a senior project manager for Prime Video. Want to define the next big thing in localizing content, enhancing content, or making it accessible using state of the art generative AI and computer vision tech? This is for you. The listing blares, promising a base salary of up to 300,000. And at Sony, which owns Sony Pictures Entertainment, its Sony AI America division is looking for an AI ethics engineer. We believe in researching and developing AI techniques that empower the imagination and creativity of artists, making makers and creators around the world. The listing writes, our aim is to advance AI so that it augments and works in harmony with humans to benefit society. We can only hope. Sony AI, the company notes, works closely with Sony's other business units, including Sony Interactive Entertainment, Sony Pictures Entertainment, and Sony Music Entertainment. The job pays a base salary of up to 160,000. Ethics, it seems, isn't as lucrative as other areas. Yeah, probably not. This is Hollywood, after all, where ethics go to die. Well, I guess maybe you could say it's Washington is where ethics go to die. Take your pick. And the list goes on. Warner Brothers Discovery has a few AI and ML jobs open in its video game division and in corporate. Paramount has an opening for a machine learning engineer in its CBS division. And NBC Universal owner Comcast has a number of AI and ML jobs focused on research, customer service, and other areas. And the hiring comes amid a larger job pullback at many of these companies. That Disney just finished laying off some 7,000 employees, And Paramount, Warner Brothers Discovery, Amazon, and others have had painful cuts in recent months, but jobs focused on AI appear to be an exception. Of course, the investment in AI should come as no surprise. The technology has taken all of corporate America by storm, and media companies are no exception when it comes to trend hunting. But the role AI can play in the future of entertainment has caused much anxiety among the workers responsible for that content. It's like you've got a house and you need to redo the kitchen. You really need to redo the bathroom. The master brother bedroom hasn't been redone for 40 years. You want to do all these things. Writer, director, and former actress Justine Bateman told THR's Top 5 podcast earlier this month. But AI is the front door, and you can get all these things from the AMPTP. But if you don't get those strong restrictions on AI, you've just given them the key to the front door, and none of those other gains will matter. It's also an area Iger, the strike's villain of the moment, is well aware of. In his first town hall after returning as Disney's CEO last November, an employee asked Iger about how the company's plans to adapt to fast moving technologies, referencing generative AI tech that was just becoming mainstream. Quote, nothing is going to stop technological advancement, he replied, adding that Disney has typically embraced new technology to tell better stories. Generative AI tech, Iger added, is something that at some point in the future the company will embrace, unquote. The AI arms race may be in the early stages, but the entertainment giants are all in the mix. And regardless of the deal they cut with the unions, AI appears poised to become a part of that future. Yeah, I mean, it ain't going away. Like I said, I've done a number of videos on AI and the impact it's going to have on Hollywood and on film and TV. And yeah, this stuff is not going away. It's unavoidable at this point. All right. Okay, that's another article on the Netflix AI job, so I don't need to go over that. Okay, let's talk about Secret Invasion a little bit. So, Secret Invasion just wrapped up uh, with a thud. So this is from Inverse. Secret Invasion proves Marvel can't even follow its own good advice. It's a bad sign when She-Hulk calls you out. The results are in. Secret Invasion is the lowest rated MCU show on Rotten Tomatoes, and it's easy to see why. Though initial press reviews, including Inverse's, had a hopeful view of the series' future, those were only based on the first two episodes. In the other four, what was supposed to be an exciting conspiracy thriller became a series that couldn't stop getting out of its own way. So what went wrong? The culprit is an incredibly narrow scope that not only ignored where the MCU can go from here, but even overlooked what it's already said. The main issue was Secret Invasion's story. The comic run that loosely inspired it packed a wallop with huge reveals as heroes we'd known for years were unmasked as Skrulls. I love how this person says we. You know, how much you want to bet this person was reading comics back then? The Disney Plus series had just one such hero, James Rhodes, aka War Machine, a secondary Avenger who's now working for the government. It wasn't exactly a game changing twist. It was made worse when everyone guessed that Rhodes was a Skrull the moment he suddenly turned against Nick Fury in episode 2. Yeah, there was no paranoia, no sense of tense loyalty shifting. It just happened for the sake of happening. Then there's the villain problem. Kingsley Ben-Adir was fine as Gravik, but he never had a proper confrontation with Nick Fury. Despite Gravik being responsible for the death of Fury's close colleague Maria Hill and for his colleagues Maria Hill and Talos, Gia is the one who took him down while disguised as Fury, cheapening the entire scene. And the emotional monologue Fury gave. Well, yeah, because she was the main star. She was the star all along because this is MCU we're in now. Just as what's her name? Sylvie was the real star of Loki, just as, Kate Bishop was the real star of Hawkeye, just as, what Layla or whatever her name was, that character was the real star of Moon Knight, and on and on. Just like what is it? Dakota North is going to be the real star of this Daredevil Born Again show. What follows is one of the worst fights in MCU history. Gravik and Geob were both imbued with Super Skrull powers, making them both overpowered. It was supposed to be a cool mirror fight akin to Taskmaster's Avengers copying skills, but instead it was just a flashy mess with a foregone conclusion. But even worse than the visual effects was Gravik's desire to steal the DNA of superheroes so that he can give himself superpowers. Does that sound familiar? In She Hulk, the finale saw Jennifer Walters climb out of her own show to confront her own writer's room about where her plot is going. Quote, the bad guy steals my blood in order to give himself superpowers, she says. Quote, where did you come up with that original idea? Was that from every other superhero story ever? Unquote. Apparently, Secret Invasion's writers didn't bother to watch She Hulk because the scheme She Hulk derides as hokey is exactly what Gravik's plan is. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I haven't really even thought of that. I just thought that the scrolls, their whole this show is so dumb. So Gravik, you know, there's a bunch of scrolls that become radicalized and they turn on Fury and humanity in general because they're refugees from their world and they wanted a new planet and Fury promised them one and he hasn't been able to give them one yet. Which, I mean, Earth isn't a spacefaring civilization, so it's not like he can hop in a spaceship and go find a planet for them. So what do they expect him to do? It's really more on Captain Marvel than it is on Fury because she can actually travel into outer space. So she could have maybe found a planet for them. And the thing, and someone, who was it that pointed this out? I remember, but so now that we know that Rhodes is a Skrull, apparently the writer or producer of Secret Invasion has said, the showrunner has said that, or somebody in position to know has said that Rhodes was replaced by a Skrull after Civil War. So basically, since Civil War, Rhodey has been a Skrull. Okay, well, Rhodey, or the Skrull disguised as Rhodey, took part in Endgame, right? Well, as part of that storyline, the Rhodey imposter, he went back in time with a bunch of the other Avengers, to prevent Thanos from getting the Infinity Stones and all that. Well, they go to that planet, I believe, that uh, Thanos retires on, right? And it's like a habitable planet. So why don't y'all go there? I mean, how about that? It's just, the people who, like they say, the people who watch the show, they aren't paying any attention to what the other Marvel shows and series are doing. But then on top of that, so their whole plan is to disguise themselves as a bunch of people in governments and cause a bunch of chaos and eventually trigger World War III, right? And have America and I guess Russia attack each other with nuclear weapons, cause a nuclear holocaust to wipe out humanity. And the Skrulls are okay with this because they're immune to radiation, apparently, which isn't a thing in the comics. But apparently they are in the show because that's what the plot needs. The plot needs them to be immune to radiation. So they just are. Okay, great. So you do that, you cause World War III, nuclear holocaust, and most of, if not all of humanity is killed. Okay, great. Congrats. There's just one problem with this plan. It isn't just humans that are harmed by radiation, all right? So is every living thing on Earth. All the plants, all the animals, they're killed by radiation too. So, you cause a nuclear war after the bombs, after the initial blasts and the radiation, and then the fallout, and then the nuclear winter and all that. You're pretty much going to wipe out all the animal and vegetable life on Earth. So then when that's all over, what are these scrolls? How are they going to survive? What are they going to eat? How are they going to live? I mean, I guess they can eat each other. I don't know. But this is so freaking stupid. It's, God. All right. Anyway, Secret Invasion's final moments confuse things further. After Nick Fury is forced to shoot Rhodey to prove he's a Skrull, President Riston delivers a statement to the American people. Quote, we all witnessed the terror attack that was carried out on my motorcade earlier this week in England. The terrorists responsible were a shape shifting alien born species known as Skrulls. That is why tonight I'm presenting to Congress for immediate emergency authorization a bill that designates all off world born species enemy combatants. We know who you are, we know how to find you, and we will kill every last one of you. Well, I would say that's probably just them, like, it's like a Trump thing, that he's supposed to be Trump, or what their crazed paranoid idea of Trump is. I would imagine it's something like that. That might sound like an intriguing premise for a future storyline, but it doesn't actually fit what's happening in the MCU right now. If everyone born off world is suddenly humanity's mortal enemy, then what about all those as guardians that who are refugees who came to Earth? Yeah, what about them? If the Guardians visited, would they be hunted down too? Maybe Secret Invasion was trying to make Riston sound like an extremist, but it just made it seem like neither the character nor the writers know what's happening in the Marvel world. Yeah, well, they probably don't. Um, you know, uh, I mean, they haven't even really addressed the fact that there's like this giant alien that's like sticking up out of the ocean. Oh boy. Between this new bill and the fact that Gia is easily the most powerful being in the entire MCU, it seems like Secret Invasion has written itself into a corner. Upcoming projects like The Marvels and Loki Season 2 need to somehow escape the mess Secret Invasion put them in, or just pretend that it never happened at all. Yeah, well, that's what they'll do. They'll just ignore it. Just like it's just like they're ignoring that celestial sticking up out of the ocean. All right, where am I at? Okay, I've 7:52. Okay, I've got time for maybe one or two more. Let me do this one. So this is another Secret Invasion related story. This is from Bounding into Comics. So Secret Invasion director appears to admit series was cobbled together in the editing room even as they were releasing new episodes. Secret Invasion director Ali Salim appeared to admit that the entire series was being cobbled together in the editing room, even as they were releasing new episodes every week. In an interview with Olivia Singh at Insider, Salim was asked, quote, from what other Marvel directors and actors have said, sometimes things in the scripts change at the last minute or in the day of filming. What was your experience like for Secret Invasion? How closely did it follow all the scripts, and how much room was there for improvisation or adjustments? Tim responded, I don't want to play semantic games, but I think of it as an evolution. As you hunt down story, everything is constantly evolving, and it's a fascinating process. He went on to elaborate. I guess there are moments of improv, like between Sam and Don, between Sam and Ben. There are really rich moments of improv. There are actors who rely more on the script. Next, Salim appeared to reveal that the later episodes in the entire story of the series was being put together as they released the first episode. And I think as we are editing, we're still finding the story. We were finding the story on episode 6 up until episode 1 had already aired. He added, that's part of the beauty of it, is that Marvel just keeps hunting it down and using the resources they have to come up with the best possible story, and that quest never ends. Elsewhere throughout the interview, Salim punted on numerous questions about story decisions, noting much of what was above him, and his main role was directing the episodes rather than making major story decisions that affect the Marvel Cinematic Universe. For example, when asked about Maria Hill's death, he said, why she's killed is another question for the MCU. I just did the best I could making it feel truthful and emotional, and I'm grateful that I have not yet received death threats for killing off Maria Hill. When asked about how the series might tie into the Marvels, he said, quote, my participation in that was to make sure that Nick Fury goes up at the end of the series, so I made sure that he went up. And where they capture him in the next, it's entirely up to them. In other words, dude, I just work here. Okay. I just, it's not my department. Similarly, when asked if he specifically knew how long James Rhodes had been a Skrull, Salim answered, "No, I think that's a question for the MCU at large, probably for Kevin Feige himself." He added, "What was presented to me was a lot of fun, and I think we made a lot of fun of it, a lot of fun out of it. But for those definitive answers, I defer to Kevin or I defer to the fans." In fact, when he was asked if he had a favorite episode or a scene that he was most proud of, he answered, "I'm proud of the whole damn thing, the 6 hours. I'm proud that I've survived. I'm proud that people are enjoying it. Well, not many. I love the scale and scope of it, the fact that I got to work on cars flipping over and explosions. But ultimately, for me, it boils down to the emotional truth that's passing between two characters, the electricity passing between two characters. And so Don and Sam in the bar, when Rhodey fires Fury, I love that. Olivia Colman and Sam Jackson in the library in episode 1, I love that. He continued, "So I'm not going to come up with exciting scenes for you, but the scenes that really move me are the ones where it's two people talking and finding a truth. Amelia Clark and Sam Jackson in episode 5 talking about Talos's death and where to bury him. I just love those moments. And like I said, then the other stuff becomes more fun, like a relaxing moment to blow shit up and cut people's fingers off," he concluded. Salim's apparent admission that the story was being cobbled together appears to confirm James Gunn's comments that he made back in January at a press event promoting the upcoming DC Universe slate. As reported by Variety, Gunn said, quote, "People have become beholden to release dates, to getting movies made no matter what. I'm a writer at my heart, and we're not going to be making movies before the screenplay is finished." He added, "I've seen it happen again and again. It's a mess. It's the primary reason for the deterioration in quality of films today versus 20 to 30 years ago. The degradation of the writer in Hollywood has been a terrible story. It's gotten much worse since I first moved here 23 years ago. Writers have been completely left out of the loop in favor of actors and directors, and making the writer more prominent and more important in this process is really important to us. They make these movies where they don't have third acts written," Gunn said, "and then they start writing them during production, making them up as they're going along, and then you're watching a bunch of people punch each other and there's no flow even to the action," he concluded. What do you make of Salim's admission that they were still cobbling the story together in the editing room for the sixth episode, even after they released the first episode? Yeah, so I mean, I totally believe that. We already know about Marvel's whole scrapbooking strategy where they will actually shoot multiple versions of scenes and of shows and stuff, and probably wasting a lot of money doing it. I wonder if they're going to keep doing that going forward. Are they going to be able to afford to, considering how much money they've lost? It's an interesting question. All right. Well, you know what? I'm right at about an hour here. I'm at 7:58. So I'll go ahead and stop it here. I want to thank those who tuned in during the live stream, and I want to thank those who will watch on the replay afterwards. And I hope you will check out my channel and some of my other videos. And I hope that you folks all have a good evening. And I will, oh, actually, next week I'll be with my National Guard unit, so I will not be streaming next Sunday. But so 2 weeks from now, probably I'll be back. Until then, take care. Good night.